there, my name is Jenny Karubian, and I am recording this blog to talk a little bit about how we help startups. Startups are one of the main types of businesses that we help, especially startups that are in the tech space. So let's talk a little bit about that. For starters, to define a startup is pretty simple. Startups are companies that are in their infancy that are striving to grow. So this is any company that an entrepreneur started that's meant to grow beyond the owner or founder. This is a company that is meant to offer some kind of scalable business within the market. In the United States today, there's nearly 80,000 startups. Most of those are in California, with Silicon Valley being sort of the epicenter of the startup community. But of those 80,000, very few will survive. In fact, only 1 in 10 startups make it past 3 years. There's a 90% failure rate when it comes to startups. So knowing that 90% of startups will fail and only 10% will actually make it, we have to wonder, why is it that startups have such a high failure rate? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's a lack of product fit or market demand. Sometimes it's just not good timing. Other times startups don't get the funding they need. Sometimes they have operational challenges when they try to scale. Sometimes it's changing consumer taste. There's a whole variety of reasons why startups fail. And the smart startups are the ones who make themselves fail-proof. So how do they make themselves fail-proof? Well, they can do a lot of strategic work and planning and plan out their pipelines in order to make themselves somewhat fail-proof. This is where we come in. We've helped a lot of startups with getting into the US market. We've helped startups to expand. We've helped them with their scaling plans. We've helped them understand what subscription models might work. We've helped them to come up with tiered approaches, which we're all familiar with. We're all familiar with different types of memberships that have different features depending on what the product is. And we've done a lot of research with startups to help them decide what types of things should go on their core product, what's the minimum viable product, and which types of things should go into a more premium tier. So let's talk about the fundamentals of fail-proof startups. What separates the startups that make it versus the 90% that fail? One strategy that startups often use is they will do some market research before they even start the company. They'll begin with some market insight. They will commission some preliminary research that we can do where we don't necessarily speak with consumers, but we do a full kind of read of what the market is and market demand, market size, all of the information that they need for their product or service. This helps to understand what's the competitive landscape, how many competitors are out there, what differentiates one competitor from another, and how can their brand stand out. And this research can be done in a relatively short amount of time to give them the background that they need to decide if they want to move ahead with the startup or not. Additionally, if a startup wants to get into a new market, maybe they want to offer a different product or they want to offer a different service, they want to expand, that might be a time in which they will also collect some market insight before they move ahead with that decision. Another strategy that startups will use is they will conduct focus groups or interviews with their target consumers. This is something that we do all the time. This is very much our bread and butter. And they will conduct research to find out what are the consumer responses to their product, to their service, what's the consumer demand, what are the trends that are happening. For example, if a startup is looking to talk to or serve young people, say college-age students, that's a very good time to actually put their product or service in front of college-age students. Youth culture changes very rapidly. It's changing all the time. And so an idea that might have seemed very viable 2 years before could actually not be as viable in a short span later. So this is the time that they might want to speak to consumers, talk to young people, and get a sense of how well their product or service will perform in the market. One of the main reasons for tech startup failure is a lack of understanding of the market and of consumers. This is a moment that's really ideal for conducting market research to make sure that your company has a good understanding of who they're trying to reach and how well their product or service will be received. Another type of market research that we do for startups is what we call product validation. So if you have a new product that you are considering releasing in the market, before getting it manufactured and going through all of that, that's the time to put the prototype in front of potential consumers. This is an ideal time to optimize your product or service, or maybe add other features, take away features. Another ideal aspect of doing product validation is being able to nail down who's your target audience. So for example, if you have a product that's geared at women, that's still very broad in terms of what type of women might find your product interesting. So at that point, when you conduct market research, maybe we would do market research with women of different ages, different geographies, different personal styles, different lifestyles. There's a whole variety of different aspects that we could go for when segmenting the research. Once we put the prototype in front of them, then we can understand, okay, these are the folks who it very much resonated with, and these are the people who it did not. So when you are looking to do, say, targeted advertising, maybe through social media, or you're looking to film commercials that might air on TV, then you'll know which type of women you actually want to speak to. So if your product does really well with women in the age group of 25 to 30, that's going to be a much different strategy than if your product appeals to women in the 55 plus age range. And that's why product validation is really useful. The next type of market research that we do is what's called informed development. So let's say, for example, you're looking to launch some kind of a service that has a subscription model. You may not know what type of features should be included at which price point. You may also not know which price points are acceptable for users in the market. So at that point, when you conduct informed development, you might look at what are all the features that you offer. You might look at how those features resonate with different types of users and what types of users would be willing to pay different price points for the features. Another reason why startups come to us is because they're looking to attract investment. We've actually worked with certain products that applied to be on Shark Tank. We've worked with people who are looking for funding and they want to put consumer reactions in front of investors to show the kind of enthusiasm and excitement that's around their product. In situations like that, we might videotape our focus groups. We might create a highlight reel that shows enthusiasm, excitement, and real consumer insight on how well the product or service is performing. And that's an ideal thing to put in front of investors when looking for investment in your product. You might be wondering, if you have a startup, when is a good time to reach out for market research? We offer market research at all stages of the product life cycle. So if you are looking to begin a startup and you haven't even hired anyone yet or incorporated yet, and you just want to do some preliminary research, if you are at the point that you're trying to scale or perfect a product or service, if you have maybe grown a bit and you're looking to get investment and you want to kind of level up to working with investors and maybe expanding your company, that's also a good time to conduct market research. So reach out to us and we would be happy to provide a free consultation for your startup. Thanks.